Hi, everybody. Welcome to my channel. I have a special guest today. Her name is Dr. Kelli Ritter, and she specializes in natural stress and anxiety recovery using quantum health strategies. Now, until I heard her presentation last April in Tennessee, I didn't know what that was either. Or even if it was interesting. But I tell you, it was fascinating, Dr. Kelli. I was sitting beside Kelly Hogan, and her and I just kept poking each other. That was cool. Did you hear that? And, she was very excited. And of course, she had you on her channel shortly after that. And I joined in a bit for that conversation and was so privileged to be able to do so. But now I have you all to myself today. And I was kind of interested in your bio because you have some personal reasons for doing this. And so I do have a couple of questions about that later on, but maybe you could tell us, you were the first person that I ever heard this statement: sunshine is a nutrient, which still fascinates me to this day. So maybe this could be our starting point, and you can tell us, how did you get here from where you were, when you first started becoming an educator?
Yeah, I'd love. So thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy being with you. You're such an amazing person. And I think it's amazing that you're sharing so much with people and helping so many people. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So I, like you and most other people, was really into the food. I thought the food was going to be the main thing. And then when I started learning about quantum health, which really quantum is the smallest of things. So the smallest changes that we can make for the biggest impact in our health, that's what I'm really interested in. But also it comes from this emerging science in applied quantum biology. So the smallest little subatomic particles and what's happening inside of our body and how that's driving some of the bigger picture. So that's a little nutshell of that. But yes, sunlight as a nutrient, I didn't know that either. I didn't look at sunlight as a nutrient. It's as important, I would dare say, if not more important than our food, but food is light. So the food that we eat has the nutrients, and we know that animal sources of food have the most bioavailable nutrients for us. So that's great. Most of us get that part. And we know that the fat is really good for us for a lot of reasons, but it's also really healthy. Fat is full of electrons that our body can use. But most of us don't realize that the light frequencies outside, the spectrum of light that we can see and the light that we cannot see, that's all influencing our functions in the body. And those frequencies of light have different code or information. And that's how our body tells time. So that's how our body knows when to make which hormones, when to make which neurotransmitters, when to release them. So the food part is really important because we have to have the right nutrients and the right building blocks, the protein and the fat for our neurotransmitters, for our hormones. But then the timing is all regulated by light. And so if we are constantly inside and don't get the right light inputs, then our body has no idea what time it is. It's very confused. So even if we have an amazing diet, we can be still struggling with some health issues. And most people don't really even think about it being related to their light.
To me, it's very fascinating because I've had a long weight loss journey, but as I get closer to my goal weight, it's these other things that are interesting to me because I can eat really well all week. On paper, it looks like I should have lost, weight that week, following within my calorie deficit, doing this, eating the right foods, and scale goes up 2 pounds. And I know that is endlessly frustrating to people. I've kind of learned that the ups and downs are part of the journey. And so I do not let that bother me because think you'll probably talk about this too. The extra stress of worrying about what the scale says is also detrimental. But it's these other things surrounding the food. Yes, food is important, but I'm just really learning about what you're talking about here. How does stress play into this?
So you can never underestimate what stress does to the body. I think we often do underestimate. We just don't realize the impact of stress, or we think, well, this is just my life and I have to deal with it. And or sometimes people think, I don't think I'm even that stressed, but they don't realize that there are a lot of things that are stressful to our bodies on a cellular level. They're actually sending more danger signaling to our bodies that we're not even realizing. So one of the biggest stressors on our body is incorrect circadian timing. And when we don't have the right inputs and we're not supporting our circadian rhythms, it actually creates that much more stress. And when our body has a cellular danger signaling going on, you're going to have more inflammation. It is related to our mitochondrial health. And our mitochondria actually move electrons through the body. That's their job. They make our energy. They make this really important water in our body, really important stuff. They also, when they are dysfunctional, they swell. And then we have lost electrons as they move through the electron transport chain, which is, so people are like, so that lost electron is reactive oxygen species. And that reactive oxygen species is inflammation. So the more stressed our body is from psychological stress, from actual physical stressors, even fasting and cold plunging, all of those are actually stressors. So if we're not using them in really mindful, smart ways and our body is more stressed, or that circadian timing is off, or our body doesn't have the right input, so we're just in that cycle of danger signaling with more inflammation. And then it's really hard to get in front of that if you don't know. If you think you're doing all the right things, most people are exercising and eating well, and then confused when it doesn't seem to be working. Either they have more weight that they're trying to lose and their body's hanging on to that, or they have other symptoms that are just lingering. And one of them can be chronic anxiety that just hangs out.
Okay. So for those people that maybe this information is all brand new to them, can you put it into some practical terms? Like what would a good day look like? And that, assuming they're already eating a healthy diet, but what would a good day look like? Maybe even what do you do in a day, because you know what to do, but some of us aren't quite sure.
Sure, I'll be happy to walk you through an ideal day, but the big thing is to be really gentle with yourself, because it's just like the food when you're first learning. What you don't want to do is beat up on yourself. What you don't want to do is to get obsessed about the scale. Like all of those things are going to increase stress, which is going to be part of the problem. Yeah. So the first thing is just realize that you're in a beginner's mind and be okay with trying things out. But an ideal day would start with sunrise. So sometimes people have to get up before the sunrise. I know a lot of people do, either because you want to, that's your quiet time, your workout time without whatever is going on in your life, or for work or whatever people have to do. So ideally, we get up right before the sunrise. And if you have to get up before, we block any kind of artificial light. Do not jump on your phone or your computer, turn on the TV, flip on all the lights. Stop doing all of that if it's dark outside when you get up. But get up and get some light. So as soon as you can get some natural light, that is the first thing to do, because it's setting the tone for the whole day. And in that early morning light, there's a lot of infrared and red, which is anti-inflammatory, very helpful for us. But it's also got all of the whole spectrum of visible light is there. And it's in a different frequency that will tell your body that it's early morning. It's time to bring on cortisol so that you have get up and go without having to have caffeine and all of that. And it helps with packing up melatonin for the night, all of those sorts of things. So then ideally, you would be outside as much as possible throughout the day. If you can just pop outside, crack a window on your drive, whatever you can do to get natural light. Now, you don't have to be right in the sun. Like, people get confused about this. This is not about having a direct view of a beautiful sunrise. You really just want the light frequencies. So trees and buildings and clouds and snow, and it's all fine. We need the light, not so much a beautiful view. And then popping out as much as you can during the day. Just start asking yourself, could I take this call outside? Could I read these 6 emails outside? Is there anything that I could do while I'm outside? And you can be in the shade. You don't have to be in like the direct sun to be able to get the light. Now, contacts and glasses, windows, all of that does block some of the frequency that we want.
Yes, I was going to say, because you mentioned cracking the window on your drive. So it's the light is not going to be the right light unless the window's open, and same within the house here.
Same. Yeah, all of our modern windows block out some of the frequencies that we want. Because a lot of people are like, oh, but I sit next to a window at work. Well, that's awesome. That's much better than not having any natural light in there, but it's not the same. And some of the frequencies will be missing. So ideally, you're outside as much as you possibly can be, taking walks at different times, because there are different times of the day that we want different frequencies. Like UVA light has a very particular purpose for focus and for mood. That's very helpful. But then UVB, when it's available in the summertime, some places you can't get UVB once during the winter months, right? Or once we hit time changes. I'm not sure about where you are in Canada, if you can do that.
I'm in Western Canada, and 2 hours north of Seattle, say.
Yeah. So I would imagine you don't have UVB in the winter time, but that's okay, because your body needs to know what season it's in. We don't have to biohack these things. It's actually about being in harmony with your natural environment. So embracing the season, embracing if people do eat some produce, making sure that produce is actually local and seasonal. So we want it to be obviously low carb. We want to stick with the animal sources of food as much as possible. That's going to be the best bet. But if you do eat produce, you want it to help orient your body to the season. So ideally, you're outside a lot. And then at sunset, there's a lot of red light again. So infrared and red light, very anti-inflammatory. And it helps the body know that it's time to start winding down. And then if you don't go in and turn all the lights on and get in front of a screen, that's going to confuse your body with that sharp blue light. Because the blue is actually how our body tells time. And that sharp blue light that comes off of all of our devices and our LED lights, and people will say, oh, but I have the warm bulbs. It doesn't matter. It's not the same as being outside, and it's still going to have a lot of blue. And that blue tells your body that it is noon in the summer in Florida. So if you are not in the United States and Florida in the summer at noon, then your body's going to be confused about when to make what. And melatonin, which is not just about sleep, it has all these other benefits, but melatonin is made earlier in the day from having light. It's made from serotonin, and that's all part of the light from the day. But then it's not released until total darkness. So if people are not in the dark when it's time to get ready for bed, they're not going to fully release the melatonin that they need, which just means they're not going to fully repair while they sleep.
I hope you're enjoying this video, listening to Dr. Kelli Ritter. I know that I'm finding a lot of fascinating information. I do have to take a moment to thank the sponsors of this video, because without them, I can't do content like this. Today's sponsor is Element, and they make an electrolyte drink that I've been using for a couple of years. Keeps me hydrated right at the cellular level, and I don't wake up at night with night cramps when I use it regularly. I'm using the raw flavor. All of the flavors contain their science-backed formula of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. You can try their other flavors with this free sample pack that you will get with any order from their website by clicking on the link below. It's also shown on the screen. It's drinkelement.com/ketogenic woman. That's DRINKLMNT.com/ketogenic woman. Thank you for sponsoring today's video, Element. And now we are getting back to Dr. Kelli. I just want to do a little recap, just to make sure I'm hearing you here. So, say you've got a job that you have to go to, or even like myself, I work from home. So, what you're saying is to take breaks throughout the day. Mm-hmm. Go out on the back porch, or maybe at your office, rather than a smoke break, you're going to go outside and just take a sky break, walk around, look at the sky, and then try to, in the evenings, as the sun is setting, it's getting darker, we need to honor that and not put all those, not have all your blue lights, your devices going all evening long.
Yeah. And that's the piece that's hard. So start wherever you can start with. Just getting out for early morning light is probably the place that I would start for people, and then try to work in more light breaks throughout the day. But then the big thing is to block the blue light at night. So you can get blue light blocking glasses. Yeah. You can get your devices. There are lots of ways to do that.
Yeah, some of them have night mode or dark mode or something like that. Is that effective to use that?
So I'm not sure if dark mode actually gets rid of the blue. So I found a way. Okay. I just searched on YouTube and found a way to turn my screen red on my phone. But I also really, it's another addiction that we have to these phones and these devices. So I started putting all of my devices away. Like, I really like to work at night, so I really had to work on this. But by 8:30 p.m., I'm off of technology. And I have a light bulb in my room that has the no blue. I have red bulb in my office too, but I just have one. It doesn't look amber or red to me. It looks normal. But if you take a picture... Okay. If you were to take a picture, it would look amber in the room. So I read next to that, and I'm still old school books. And I know that some devices, there are ways to get the blue light off of it. But I think to be really protective of your night, and then if you can, have a really dark bedroom where you sleep. Because a lot of people, particularly people with a lot of anxiety, will sleep with lights on, TVs on, all kinds of things in their room, and it's just disrupting their sleep even more. And so if you can get all of that off at night, have a dark, cool room while you sleep. I sleep with a sleep mask. So, and my favorite sleep mask is made by Viva Rays, and it completely blacks out. You can get them. Just want to get one that's not toxic, like cotton or something that's not toxic.
Okay.
But Viva Rays is a really good one. So if you don't have blackout curtains, or you don't want to have blackout curtains because you want to have natural light in the mornings or whatever, that's another way that you can get it completely dark at night. There's a lot of healing that can happen for people just by blocking blue light at night. Turning off the devices or getting the glasses, and making sure you have a really dark bedroom for sleeping, or the sleep mask. So that you can actually get into deeper levels of autophagy, which is how our body cleans itself.
Okay. All right.
I
Well,
used to,
this
yeah,
is all good stuff.
yeah.
So now let's talk about being outside, because I think
Okay.
that kind of brings me to another topic
Mhm.
that I wanted to talk to you about, and that is grounding and earthing. Are they the same thing, by the way?
Yeah.
Grounding and earthing.
So usually, yes, they're used synonymously in for most
Okay.
people because what it literally means that earthing means that we're literally grounding our bodies. Our bodies are actually electrical first, so that's really interesting to learn. I always thought of the body as mechanical with these chemical things going on. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
think of us as actually electrical beings first. So what we can do is put any skin touching any of Earth's
Mm-hmm.
surface will actually literally ground us. Every part of our body, except for
Okay.
our red blood cells, is conductive. And I think that's by design so that we can actually
Okay.
ground ourselves, which recharges our body. So, earthing and grounding the same in the counseling world. So sometimes people get confused because a therapist might say, we're going to use grounding. That's not what they mean. They mean to bring you back to the
Okay.
present moment. That's why I use the
Right.
term earthing. So sometimes it can get a little confusing for people in the therapy world, but mostly those are interchangeable. But it really is about absorbing the electrons from the Earth's surface. That's how we recharge our bodies. That's how any animal that walks on the earth, their paws, that's how we
Mm-hmm.
recharge.
So yeah, and I always thought of grounding and earthing as needing to be barefoot outside. But
Mhm.
one of the things I learned from you, because some of us are in a wet climate or a snowy, people in Alaska, whatever,
Yeah.
I have learned from you that it is okay to be outside in your shoes and use trees or anything that's planted
Yeah.
in the ground. You can ground through your hands. It doesn't have to be through your bare feet. It can be through your bare hands. And
Mhm.
my theory is that people who are on their hands and knees gardening all the time, they are some pretty happy, you know, nicely centered people, right? They have this zen with
Yeah.
getting their hands into the ground. So do you want to talk about that a little bit, about the importance of being outside and maybe using other
Mhm.
contacts while you're out on your walks or whatever?
Yes. I mean, I think that's a really good point because sometimes people are like, I'm not going to be out there barefoot for whatever reason they don't like it or it's uncomfortable or whatever it is. So any of our skin, a cheek up against a tree, like any skin will work. So just touching it has to be a plant. It can't be in a pot, but obviously a
Right, right.
plant that's planted in the ground and it doesn't just have to be grass because I think sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to be in the grass. Dirt, rocks, even concrete works. It just can't be painted. Asphalt doesn't work. It's not conductive. Wood is not conductive, which is interesting to me that
Oh
when I
yeah,
touch a
yeah.
tree, so when we're grounded. So I'm like, but the wood isn't conductive. So I'm not sure, but I just touch leaves and trees and whatever
Okay.
you can bushes along the way, whatever on your walk. You can get grounding shoes, so earthing shoes that are conductive on the bottom, but you have to make sure you also have either no socks or conductive socks because that won't work if
Okay.
you
Okay.
little
Interesting.
trick. Yeah,
Yeah.
little tricks that you can do to keep yourself. And then you and I both were talking about I'm sitting on an earthing mat. So while I'm inside, I earth as much as I possibly can because it is some of us, it really is anti inflammatory. There's a lot of benefit to it, and it very much helps with our mental health. And some of us just have a lot of repair to do. We had a lot of
Okay.
years of damage
Yes.
we didn't mean to. We thought we were doing everything right or whatever. There's, no reason to be beating yourself up. We just have a lot of reversal to do. And so the more we can be grounded, the better. The only people that need to worry about this is if you're on blood thinner because earthing naturally thins our blood. So you can see,
okay.
you can take blood from they're great videos too. You can search these videos where you look at blood under a microscope and it's kind of clumping up, and then 10 minutes walking barefoot outside, come back in, take some blood, and the blood is now flowing. I mean, it's so beautiful to see how quickly
Wow.
this works in our bodies. It's virtually instantaneous, the benefits are. So there are a lot of ways to do that. But if you are on blood thinner, then you don't want to sleep on earthing mats and spend more than probably an hour or so a day having somebody monitor that.
That is really good information to know. Now, you mentioned you're sitting on the mat, so it doesn't have to be bare skin on your mat, or are you wearing shorts?
I'm wearing shorts. So, or my feet. So I fold my feet up and my feet are on it. Or, so I usually have it on the ground if I have long pants on, but I usually will sit on it if I have some skin that can touch it.
Okay, so skin touch on those mats is important. Okay, so now you just talked about the blood thinner. I did have a couple of questions asked me. Cardiac issues. If someone has cardiac issues, should they be, or can they use these grounding tools? The ones that you plug in?
And it can actually be really helpful. There's some good research. I forget the cardiologist's name that has done some of this with their patients, and it can be very helpful. You just want to be making sure that you're working with your healthcare providers and that you've got the right,
and not on blood thinners if you're a cardiac patient.
And if you are, even if you're on, my mom's on blood thinner and I still have her earth every day. Like, it's beneficial. You just don't want to overdo it, because then you don't want your blood to get too thin, obviously.
Yes. Okay. And then somebody else asked me if they have, or I think they used a mat or a big mat on their bed. They have restless leg syndrome, and they felt it was getting worse for a few days, so they took it off. And I was just wondering if you've ever heard of that, or do they need to give it more time, or maybe just a few minutes a day until they build up? Like, is there any buildup required?
There usually is not buildup required, but I still would recommend that you get outside for real earthing rather than biohacking. Some people are extremely sensitive. And so if there is any energy coming through because you're plugged into the grounding cord, but there is, some people just feel really sensitive. If there's any electricity coming anywhere in the room, then if there are things plugged in the room, I have people go around and unplug all the stuff while they sleep. So that person, he or she, could build up and just see how that goes. But I think you always have to really pay attention to your body. And I do think that sometimes things will ramp up before they calm down. So it is worth giving it a try and going slowly and then putting it. But there are people that are very sensitive and they just can't do a lot of the biohacking. They can do the more natural outside earthing. Yes. But any of the devices seem to give them a little bit even more of a jittery experience.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. And, none of this is to say to people that, you need to buy the mats and shoes and things like that. I mean, those are...
Start with the free.
Start with the free stuff outside, walk in, go walk down a path and, reach out to the bushes beside you. That's what I've been trying to get in the habit of doing, and hug those trees. That is all free stuff that people can do to, you just feel better doing that anyways. Yeah. And getting more steps in. I mean, there's just so many, it's win, 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 win all the way on this, I think. You do have a company that you recommend that you buy your, I'm going to call it grounding tech from. And so we'll have that link below if anybody wants to check out those products. But, like we said, go for the free stuff and use those if you live in the land of the midnight moon. Where's that? Alaska. Like you never get any light or anything like that. Or just in a super rainy area like me. Like I feel like there are days I'd love to get out there and other days where I don't. So
yeah. And I think one of the other things just to mention is that nature, and being in nature, around nature, seeing even images of nature sends safety signals to our body on a cellular level. So when you say win, 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 I mean, there is win, win, win all the time by being outside. And it's interesting that though we just need the light, and the light is available in the rain. So even if you're not really wanting to get outside, I still get out there in the rain because you're still getting the light frequencies. Your body's
so
still oriented.
We're not talking about you need to live in a sunny climate here then. You can do this year round and get a lot of light. Do you need, if you're in a rainy climate, do you need to extend that time outside to benefit?
Preferably, yes.
Okay.
I don't want to overwhelm people because I just want them to go out. But yes, the cloudier it is, the longer you can stay out, the better, and the less clothing, because we have sensors in our eyes and on our skin. So if you are wearing contacts, get more skin in the game if you can. But really embracing the season that you're in and the environment that you're in, whether it's rainy or snowy or cold. So, you don't want to go out there and freeze, but I'm just saying that the more skin you can have, the more sensors, your body's going to be able to orient faster. And but the longer you can be out there, the better. Like, that's just,
Okay. That's good to know. So now one of the things in your bio that I could really relate to, because I have this in my family too, is that you have a family member that had some anxiety and panic attacks, and this is kind of why you're so focused on this subject and excited about what you're doing. So I have one of those, and I'm going to guess that there's going to be people in this day and age that are watching this who go, oh yeah, my son, my daughter, my spouse. How can we help? How can we help those members of our family? What did you do? What would you do now?
Yeah. I think everything I've ever done, how I got to nutrition was because my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And so I think when you have a loved one that you're trying to help, it's very motivating to learn more and open up. And I just want to say that I have benefited so much from what I've learned because of them. So my son, who's the one how I found quantum health, he's like, oh, well, you're welcome that I went through all of this so that you could find it. So I think what's interesting is that how we can help is by modeling, like doing this for yourself so that you actually have the energy and the stamina and the wherewithal to keep showing up for the people that you love and the things that you love to do in your life, and then modeling it for other people. It's hard once you see it and start feeling it and doing these things. It's hard to be quiet. You want to tell the whole world the whole world isn't necessarily ready. There are steps. It's a process, right? So I think just being patient with people. I would love, my son is doing amazing. So I'm so grateful. But he also doesn't do all the things that I want him to do, right? And so I think being patient and also, do this stuff for yourself and see for yourself, because it's so much easier to then say to somebody, this really changed my life. I started waking up feeling grounded and clear-headed, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't remember ever waking up feeling this clear. And so it's a little bit, it's very inspiring and motivating in and of itself. But yeah, that's how I came to learn about quantum health. And I was shocked because when he was having the panic attacks and he was throwing up at school almost daily. I mean, it was just really It was really rough. And I thought, I'm supposed to be the expert here in stress and
Mm-hmm.
anxiety. I work with all these people. I thought I knew as much as you could know from a mental health standpoint. I have lots of
Mm-hmm.
degrees here. And I thought that the nutrition would be. So, of course, we started with supplements and nutrition with him, and it definitely helped. All of that helped.
Yeah.
And yet, it didn't really move the needle like the quantum health strategies. And the quantum health strategies are really about fixing your life so you're supporting your circadian rhythms, getting your
Yes.
light right, using light, earth, water. It's all natural. It's just getting yourself back oriented to nature and the nature that we are, actually. And then something happens spiritually along the way when you're doing that. It's just transformational. It's returning you to yourself and to the
Mm-hmm.
nature that you are. And so a lot will start to shift. And it doesn't mean that there's not emotional stuff and stress and trauma. Old traumas will come back up
Yeah.
to be healed. Sometimes things that you thought, I dealt with that. And here it is again. And so it's not, sometimes feeling really, really good and feeling the freedom can actually be kind of disorienting. But it's also, you're moving in the right direction when you keep just feeling better and better most of the time.
Okay. Yeah. It can
Yeah.
be very motivating too to people
It,
when they have
yeah.
a day where they feel really good and they want more of that. You had mentioned safety signaling
Yeah.
in the last few minutes, and so what? Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that was something that I really resonated with as well the first time I heard you speak.
Yeah, I knew that our nervous system was really important. And then in order to feel coherence in the body, where there's this communication between your heart and your brain and your
Mm-hmm.
gut, and it all is working really well, I knew that's what we wanted. I just didn't realize how many danger signals we have just from our modern lifestyle and what safety signaling looked like. So being in nature in and of itself is safety signaling. Eating nutrient dense food on a regular basis so that your
Mm-hmm.
body knows it's going to get nutrients that it needs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a safety signal. We are wired specifically for the essential fatty acid DHA, which is mostly found in seafood. So if
Mm-hmm.
people are taking, fish oil supplements, I prefer people to actually get it from food. But that actually, DHA in and of itself, just that one thing sends safety signals to our
Oh,
cells.
wow.
We are biologically wired to move towards water and to move towards fish and seafood so that we can get that DHA. Now, some people are allergic or they can't. Don't freak out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay. There are lots of ways to get safety signals. Just seeing water actually is helpful to our nervous system. Being in
Ah,
nature sends those safety signals on a cellular level to us. Being around trees. So if people are like, well, I live in the city, I would just do what you can.
yep.
Like even images of nature are helpful to us. So
Well, so
that's what I mean by that.
yeah, so it's so interesting what you said about the water because I you hear people say I always feel so much better when I go to the beach or the lake, I'm drawn to water. There's a place near where I live here that has walking paths and you get glimpses of the ocean. And there's just something so calming about that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize. I thought when you mentioned water earlier, you meant drinking water, which I guess is also important, but
It is,
seeing it. And,
but seeing it, being around it, we're actually we're wired to appreciate being near water. So, and I do think that, sometimes people have traumatic experiences that can interrupt that, but find what does feel nurturing, what feels really good to your nervous system. because meditation, breath work,
Mm-hmm.
all of
Mm-hmm.
those things can be helpful for
Okay.
our nervous system, can help send safety signals to our body. But we're mostly water. So our bodies, we make the water inside of us and then it gets structured. So it's not like drinking water. It's actually more like a gel-like inside of us. But
Okay.
water holds memory. And so there's a lot we can do
Uh,
with water. Yeah. We won't go too far
okay.
into that.
No,
That's for
no. I
another
mean,
time. But it's
that's like, 1,000 questions, like
yeah,
right there.
it's really
uh,
fascinating. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk to you about, because this is part of what I hear from you, is mitochondrial health. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah. I know these little organelles, how could they be so important? So these little organelles inside of our cells, and we can have the brain cells can have 1 million of these little organelles inside. And the mitochondria are really important. So Anita, if people are like, I don't know, I'm starting to get overwhelmed, take your time and really actually start to learn more about mitochondria, because healthy mitochondria drive health. Dysfunctional mitochondria drive disease through
Okay.
inflammation. So, kind of what we were talking about before. So, that's what I mean. Mitochondrial health means that you've got really healthy, functioning mitochondria. We inherit our mitochondria. So, you get what you get, kind of like your blueprint of your genetics. You get what you get, but that's not the end of the story, which is exciting because we can actually reverse damage to our mitochondria. We can get to the point where we're making new healthy mitochondria. So, whatever you've been given, and there's some really good research that shows that we get it from our mothers. So, whatever your
Oh,
mother's, yeah. Um,
interesting.
I know. So, that's Dr. Doug Wallace's work. And what he also showed is that we can function without symptoms with our mitochondria up to 70% dysfunctional. He calls them mutant. So with these mutant mitochondria. And so I think a lot of people are like, oh, like we can still, our body is beautifully designed to keep us alive and moving forward, but we can feel awful and keep moving and keep pushing on. And your mitochondria could be really dysfunctional and having a very hard time because they don't have the right inputs, and you can still be pretty functional, but that's where we're getting a lot of symptoms. So by the time we have a lot of symptoms of whatever we've got, you've got some dysfunctional mitochondria. So then we got to get to work to repair them and give them the inputs that they need. And I know I don't want to overwhelm people, but I just want
Okay.
to for you to understand how important these little things are. They're making your energy, they're making the water inside of your body, which is extremely important. And they're moving these electrons through the body, which is like, I think of electrons like money in the bank. If the body is the bank, the more these electrons are actually like money in the bank. It's energy that you can then use however you would want to use it for all the things
Okay.
that you love in your life. So that's why we want to pay attention to the mitochondria.
So where can people learn more about
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Because I would love to know how I go about doing that exactly.
Yeah. And I think I just created a free webinar. So I had a free class, and that recording, people can get it for free. They can learn more about mitochondria and mood, but it gives you
Okay.
the basics about mitochondria, a little bit of that. I have courses if people want to go deep into understanding more about, I have quantum stress management, which is all about circadian rhythms, mitochondria, a little bit about food in that one too, specifically quantum nutrition. That is a better way of learning, going deeper and figuring out
Okay.
more. I have free, I have a podcast, so people can start trying what's free, start poking around and learning. But if they're ready to go deeper into their own health, then one of the courses is a great way to do that.
Okay. Yes. So your podcast is called The Nourished Soul, which I love that name. I think that's a fantastic name. And you are active on Instagram because I see you posting almost pretty much every day, offering these tidbits of how to live a healthier, more well-balanced life. So we're going to make sure that all those links are below so that people can find you, follow you, contact you,
Perfect.
and make use of your resources. I just think this is endlessly fascinating, and I really want to thank you for agreeing to come and talk to me today.
Well, thank you for having me. Anytime. I love to talk about this stuff. So, and I'd love to have the questions because I want to answer what people have because I do know that when it's new, you're like, well, what?
I know.
Well,
because when I heard you in Tennessee, I was like, what? I need more. So, okay, so we'll talk about that, and but for now, we'll say goodbye and ask people to check out Dr. Kelli on Instagram and any of the other links that we have below. And thank you guys so much for watching.
Yes,
goodbye, everybody. All right.
Hi, everybody.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, now it says you're
Good thing
recording.
this is going to be edited.
Okay, I'm standing up. Goodbye.
Okay, all right.